All right, tonight we're going to talk about the theorems about a tangent line. Now remember, a tangent line is a line that only intersects a circle at one point. It does not go through the circle. And the theorem says if a line is tangent to a circle, then it is perpendicular to the radius drawn to the point of tangency. Notice, here is my tangent line, here is my radius. I know they're perpendicular because they form a right angle, and this is my conclusion. My tangent line is perpendicular to my radius. You also can get the converse of that, and you do that by swapping it around. If a line is perpendicular to the radius of a circle at a point on the circle, then the line is tangent. So the conclusion is, if this line and this line are perpendicular, then line M must be a tangent. So we want to make sure that we have, if a line is tangent, that it's perpendicular. And if it's a perpendicular, then you know that it has a right angle. So that's what we're going to be looking for in today's lesson. So probably would be a good idea if we were indicated that this was a right angle. Remember, right angles make an arrow that point to the hypotenuse. Basically now we have a right triangle, which is just what we got through studying. And we learned that we can find sides of a right triangle two ways. We can use the Pythagorean theorem, or we can use the trig functions. So we want to use the Pythagorean theorem here because we don't know any angle measures. So the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now it's very important that a and b are the legs of your right triangle. So I know one leg is 12, so 12 squared. I know the other leg is 16, 16 squared, and that equals c squared, which is going to be my hypotenuse. Well, 12 squared is 12 times 12, which is 144. 16 squared is 256, and that equals c squared. So now I'm going to do what this says to do. It says to add 144 and 256. So that gives me 400 equals c squared. And I know this is not going to be 400. It's way too big. So remember, to solve for squared, you take the opposite, which is square root. And the square root of 400 is 20. And that checks out because that is the hypotenuse. So it should be bigger than 16 and 12. It also should be a number somewhere close to 16 and 12, and 20 is not too far off. Right here, if this line here is tangent, then it's got to be perpendicular to the radius, which is from here to here. Alright, so if I want to find out what this diameter equals, let's label it x. Again, I have a right triangle, so I can find sides on a right triangle using the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A and b must be your legs. I know one leg is 4. The other leg is x. And my hypotenuse must be 8.5 because my arrow is pointing to it. So that would be 8.5 squared. To work this out, I need to do my exponents. So 4 squared is 4 times 4. That's 16, plus x squared. Get the calculator out. 8.5 squared is 72.25. So to solve for x squared, I need to subtract 16 from both sides. Don't forget to line your decimals up if you're not using a calculator. So that's going to give me x squared equals 56.25. And to find my answer, I need to take the square root of both sides. So my answer is going to be x equals 7.5. And I'll look at my picture here, and I see 77.5 is a reasonable answer. It is smaller than the hypotenuse. So I think I've done a good job there. Alright, here's another problem. If this point's tangent, then these are perpendicular. Therefore, I have a right triangle. So I'm going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, one problem is I only know from here to here is 6, but it's a radius. So what would be the distance from the center to the other side of the circle? It would also be 6. Alright, so the length of this side right here, 6 plus 6 is 12. So one leg is A, that could be 12 squared. The other leg is 6.4, so 6.4 squared. And I want to find the hypotenuse. I know that the hypotenuse is the missing side if I make my arrow. So 12 squared is 12 times 12. That would give me 144. 6.4 squared is 40.96. And that equals c squared. So to solve for c squared, I do what this says. So I add 144 and 40.96. And that tells me it's 184.96 equals c squared. So to complete the problem, I need to take the square root of c squared and the square root of 184.96. And that tells me my answer is 13.6. And I check to see if my answer makes sense. I know that I was looking for my hypotenuse. It is still the biggest side. It's bigger than 12 and 6.4. So I think I've done a good job on that one. Alright, last problem here. Again, I've got a tangent line. I know from the theorem that the tangent line must be perpendicular to the radius. So I've got a right triangle because I've got my right angle. So I'm going to pull out the Pythagorean theorem again. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm looking. I need to find that side right there. I'm looking for this side. That's where the question mark is. I know that this side right here would be 1.5 plus 1. So that would be 2.5 is my hypotenuse. I know that's my hypotenuse because I make an arrow out of my right angle mark. Alright. I know this is a radius, so it's going to be the same thing as this radius, so that's also 1.5. So 1.5 squared. And I'm looking for my other leg, which would be b squared. So I have to say 1.5 squared is 2.25 plus b squared. I put 2.25 or 2.5 squared, and that tells me it's 6.25. So to solve for b squared here, I need to subtract 2.25 from both sides. Remember to line your decimals up if you're not using a calculator. So that gives me b squared equals 4. So to finish my problem, I need to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of 4 is 2. So this side equals 2. And I know that works out because the hypotenuse is 2.5 and that's still the longest side. Alright, so we'll work on some more of these when we get to school tomorrow.